Pope John Paul II warned the hard way about the importance of God's plan for urban freedom. As a young man in Poland, he experienced the brutal of living under the two most monster tyrants in urban history, Nazism and communism. Both were overthrown with their own fix, and both tried to restore its spirit. But no government, no matter how evil or brutal, can reach into our hearts and take away our beliefs. As a devout Catholic nation, the Poles refused to surrender their faith in God, yet what state them do it all. It was in the darkness of Nazi rule that the future Pope resolved to dictate his life to bring the light of Christ into the world. He committed himself to study the faith, then used his awesome spiritual authority to preach the truth, defend freedom and hope, bring down communism. This is how he helped set millions of people free. Pope John Paul II was born on May 18, 1920 in Wardell, Poland. His name was not John Paul, it was Karl, pronounced Walter, but everyone called him Walker. When was not a big town back then, it had a handful of cars, but most people still use horse-drawn carriages to get around. The town had small factories, shops, and markets for farm produce. It was a peaceful place to grow up in. But then Rogue family was struck by tragedy. Rogue family died when he was just a small child. 3 years later, his brother, older brother Edmund, died too. He was left alone with his father. A retired army captain and Christian. Rogue's father was a real gentleman. He understood how deep his son's pain must be, so he gave him what he needed most, companionship. The two of them spent their days together. Father and son would rise early, pray, and eat breakfast. After they would attend early mass in church. After school, they would eat once together at a restaurant run by a lady they know, Mrs. Well, Marin Barnes. Whether did Mrs. Barnes know that she was daily feeding the future Pope? After once, the work would play with friends for a couple of hours, then do his homework before eating supper with his father. When the day was almost done, father and son would take evening walks in the cold countryside. Walker loved these walks. He developed a close bond with his father by sharing his most personal thoughts at night. He would see his father in his day, kneeling by the bed in prayer before he went to sleep. His father set an example for spoke that he was expelled for the rest of his days, to put God at the center of life and to live with compassion, honor, and honesty. One afternoon, when Rock was playing with his friends, Mr. Martin walked in. They saw a picture left in the election by a local policeman. Brooks pointed at Rocky and prefaced his hands up, but the gun actually went off. Brooks was standing 6 feet away from Rocky. The boy just missed Rock's head and sat at a window behind him. The shot woke Miss Barrows from her nap. She ran into the room where she found the boys shaken by a wife and were taking the gun away from her son. She told them, "Well, guns are not a game. Never play with a gun." That would not be the last time Rocky Barrow escaped death. When Rock was 18, he and his father moved to Crangwell, where Rock could attend university. He had amazing talent for languages and would go on to study 15 of them, but his greatest passion was the dido. He performed as an actor and he wrote plays. He also wrote poems. It was a beautiful time. But then came most terrible war in urban history, World War II, and everything changed. Nazi Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939. The Nazis believed that they were the superior race and that the Poles belonged to an inferior race. They wanted to make the Poles their slaves. And so, after they conquered Poland, they embarked on a systematic plan to destroy it and snuff out the Polish spirit. Under the Nazi occupation, Poles were not allowed to teach children to count beyond 100. They were allowed to teach them on the very basic reading and writing, just enough to be able to read signs and follow simple instruction. Cultural. I would take this as playing the music of famous poets, composer Frederick Chopin, or read in public the works of famous poet Adam McQuarrie were forbidden under penalty of death. Statues of Polish national heroes were torn down. The Riksdag was also attacked. The Nazis knew how important the Catholic Church was to the Polish national life. They therefore mostly imprisoned and executed thousands of Catholic priests and nuns. Terrible darkness descended on the whole country. In order to survive, the Nazi-occupied Poland had to find a way to preserve it. Riksdag and Nazi spirit when the Nazis closed the university where For our studying, the professors decided to keep teaching secretly in their own homes. Students were gathered together with a promise to hear the professor lecture, but one car wanted to do more to keep the fire our porous cogs are burning. He and his friends found a secret leader group called the Wasp Leader. After a hard day's work in a stone quarry, he and his friends would rehearse, then perform a private apartment where the props, stakes cooked in all costumes. The windows had to be dropped to make sure the Nazis could see what they was doing. In the darkened streets, Nazis were our speaker sport. The anti-Polish propaganda they would announce punishment for anyone who resists the German occupiers and glorify the army and the victories. But inside the weapons leader would just ignore the dream and bravery make helters and stores come alive for the secret heartbeats. 2 years after the onset of Nazis occupied Corfu, while father died, it was a table blow instead of sinking into despair. His father, heroic wife, inspired, protected his wife to God. He decided to become a priest. He went to the resident of Ox Abbot of Colin, knock on the door and asked to join the cemetery to study for priesthood. Nazis forbade the acceptance of new students to the cemetery, so Abbot had to decide that new students would pretend they were secretaries working for him. So at great perseverance, Carver took a scattered job as a secretary, where in addition to his studies, he helped Jews find refugees from Nazi sex camps. In August of 1944, there was a Polish uprising against the Nazis in Warsaw. To prevent a similar uprising in Krakow, the Nazis wound up all the able-bodied women cover hid in the basement of a Rective house, while the German secret police, the Gestapo, searched the floors above. Thankfully, they did find him. Later that evening, he made his way sneaking in the shadows to the Archbishop's home. He managed to evade the Germans till the end of the war, 5 months later in January 1945. But Poland's trouble did not end with the war. The country was liberated from the Nazis, but the Russian communists, but they too wanted total control, and like the Nazis, they set out to crush anything they gave people comfort or hope for a different future. They took over education and crushed express of Polish patriotism and expressed the activity of the Catholic Church. It was under communists that Carver was ordained as a priest, in despite of the communist threats of France. He set out to build a supportive community of young people. They prayed together, met to study together, also volunteered to help the sick and poor and the needy. was not just a priest, he was also ath- elected and coaxed his group of followers to go with him on skating, hiking, camping, and trips. Not many priests do such things, but Carlo understood that sports weren't good for more than just for body, but also in also affect for spirit by themselves. Out in the country, the members of his group could fly, talk freely without fear that someone would eavesdrop on them, and they thought to become the secret priest. Father Frog always told them, "Be not afraid." Surely, but surely, Father found 12 rose the short ranks. He became a bishop, then an archbishop, then a cardinal, which is the highest rank except that of the Pope. But the priest, these poor mumblings, he still with the wife of a simple parish priest. What he had, he would give to the needy. He only chose earthly belongings, where were his skates and hiking equipment, which never stood idle for long in his daily life. Carl wore old shoes and an old car sock. If you saw him on the street back in Poland, might have mistaken him for a beggar. The commoners would not allow new churches to be built without a special permit, and they granted therefore such permits. Conquest many neighborhoods needed churches but could not have them built in protest. In that great postal weeks, Father Culver began holding midnight Christmas masses in one such neighborhood under the open skies. He did it well after well, until finally the communists relented, gave permission to build exhorts. In a special ceremony, Colonel Ford used a pickaxe himself to break the ground for the foundation of the new church. It took 10 years of work, and volunteers from all over Poland came to help. But finally, the beautiful arch church was complete. In 1978, Carl Von was elected by his fellow colonists to be the first Polish Bishop of Rome, the head of the Catholic Church, elect. That's his title, simply the Pope. He chose for himself the name of John Paul II to honor his predecessor John Paul I, the longest Pope, elected in 132 years. Pope John Paul II brought with him the exemplary to the papacy. He was a modern man with vast experience as an actor, a playwright, a poet, and a sportsman. He also known the horror of the modern age and lived under Nazis and communism. In the name of Jesus Christ, he was determined to fight these forces and he would stand for truth, benedicts and freedom. But from his experience as a coroner in communist Poland, he knew he could not involve himself with politics overtly by calling for overthrow of communist government. These governments could see a direct challenge by the Catholic Church as a threat, cracked on churches and prostitute all faithful Catholics. He would leave his flock extract behind the iron curtain of the communist borders. So rather than call for freedom from communism, he preached religious freedom, the freedom of all human beings to worship according to their personal conviction. That way, his message could not be said to challenge the communist government directly. Still, communists were the basis of any kind of freedom. So when the Pope announced that he would fix Poland as homeland, the communist government of Poland was very uneasy about it. A Polish Pope could speak to what if he called the people to rebel against the government, but they could not forbid the most famous and by far beloved man in Poland from common red gold region. The entire country would be very angry and like to rise up in protest, maybe in a revolution. Governments can scare people into submission one by one, but they can scare them if they are wise to go. So the communists decide to let the phase proceed, and they watch it very closely. The people of Poland were overjoyed. The grey, depressed faces of the cities came to life. People from all over the country flocked to the capital, Warsaw. The taxi groups of the Holy Man Hotel quickly filled up, so churches opened the doors and let people sleep on the floors. Many people welcomed strangers into their homes, homemade, decorated and dotted the cement facade of buildings with lovely colors. Hope was in the air. On June 2nd, 1979, hundreds of thousands of men and women and children and elderly people waved Polish flags lined up along the 10-mile stretch of road from the airport to Warsaw. Even more gathered at the welcoming ceremony in Victory Square, where the Pope addressed the crowd. Archbishop introduced him. Holy Father, he said, head of the Roman Catholic Church, Christ, victor on earth, apostle of Christ and his gospel message of truth and love, a son of Poland, chosen by God, the capital, and united in prayer. The crowd held a breath, so did Edward Gervas, the leader of the Communist Party of Poland. He was standing in a hotel room overlooking the crowd, square, watching intensely. His good priests, his policemen, and the army were standing by the cross in a sign of disobedience to the government. All were waiting to hear what the Pope would say. We were for consuming their brothers and sisters. The Pope began to go with lyrics to sing a hymn of praise to divine providence, which enabled me to be here as a pilgrim. He called Poland the motherland, without mentioning the communism by name, without reminding his listeners of how the communist government and harsh the church, the Pope said that belief in God cannot be kept out of any part of the world. He quoted Christ's words from the New Testament, "For I am with you always, to be cause of the age." The crowd began chanting, "We want God, we want God, we want God." It was a cry from thousands and thousands of hearts, and it filled the air and rose into the clear blue skies. These three words held all the hope of a plus people, the one that escaped the godless tyrants and of communism. But the Pope was careful not to let hope spill into rage. When he was done, he sent the crowd home in peace. He knew that if they did not preach in peace, the communists would use all the military might to violently suppress them. These good people were his flock, and he bore great responsibility for their safety. From Warsaw, the Pope traveled to the city of Krakow, where he was once a student, a young priest, and the archbishop. While there, he stayed in Archbishop residence in the very same place where he was once came knocking on the door, asked to be accepted into the seminary, the very same place where he had come to live. When he became Archbishop himself, nothing had changed in the mother's room where he used to sleep, except that there was a vase of flowers to greet him. The people assembled the night before to decorate the building with Polish flags. The government tried to stop them. They shut off the street lamps and pretended it was a power outrage, but the people did not give up. Drivers parked nearby to turn on the headlights so the decorator could go on. When the Pope arrived, the street had turned into a foxtail. He looked down at the cheerful crowds from his window. This was dangerous, and the Pope understood that. Well, he would not give the authorities excuse to crack down on his brothers and sisters. When the crowd asked him for a speech, he decided to calm them down. He suggested that they may all sing hymns together. They sang and sang and sang until finally a minute. The Pope said, "Well, ask for a word or two." So they all good night. With that, he smiled and waved to the crowd and withdrew into the room. People understood and went home in peace. The Pope fixed in it without trouble, but he was awakened something in the hearts and minds of the Poles, as well as the other press briefers behind the uncoat and white them. John Paul II had himself bravely suffering on the town for many years, and what he had courage to stand up to them. People saw the apostles were afraid of this holy man. Her courage spoke the truth. Fear is infectious, but so is courage, and the Pope Fixit had planted the seed of courage in people's heart. With his encouragement and support, they began to rise up against the communist rules. It began in the big ship of Polish city of good there after the government raised the prices of food at shipyards. Workers began to strike and protest. Strikes are forbidden in communist countries, but the government found it hard to stop them. The numbers were too great. It was impossible to arrest them all. But the strike was led by a brave Rex named Weeks Wells. He knew he could end up in prison, even sought death, but he refused to be intimidated. Wells, Paxos' father, and the led 4,000 striking workers in the open air, massed inside the ship. The friends and families joined them behind the shipboard fences and shield gates. The shipboard carpenter made a big wooden cross. The strikers first formed a warning, then inspire a movement they called so the Pope has no army, but he holds awesome spiritual powers, and when he indicated his support, so that he helped strengthen the resolve. This was, after all, the Pope whose constant prayer to the believers confronting evil in the world is be not afraid, because God is with you. The readers of Psalm held fast, and the sport among the Poles grew till the commonest reason there was better to negotiate with them than to try and crush them. They accept so as regal workers wounded. It was a great step forward. When the strike at the shipyard began, Rick had promised himself that if the strike ended peacefully, he was not in jail. His first trip abroad would to be the flag to sit in Rome. He would come to receive the blessing of the Holy Father, Pope John Paul II, in January 1981. He did just that. The Pope accepted him, his fellow readers of so he spoke with them privately, and then he made his boat of the public sending saw waves around the world that directed and enraged the forces of evil. Four months later, evil struck back in a plane orchestrated by communist secret priests. A man named Mal poked the Pope Victor acid into St. Peter's Square in Rome, where a crowd was waiting for him to give his speech. Again, Carl faced a wooden gun at point blank range. This time the shot hit him square in the abdomen. The Pope fell back in the car. Badly wounded, he was oozing a lot of blood. As An ambulance rushed the Pope to the hospital. The world held its breath. It took hours of surgery, but the in his wife was safe. Mercifully, the bullets nearly missed his nerve center and walked blood vessel. The would-be assassin was captured and put in jail after the Pope recovered. He fixed Alex in his cell in his great mail. He wanted to understand what drove the man who had tried to kill him. He spoke to him alone and offered his forgiveness when he asked what they talked about. John Paul II said this. I spoke to him as a brother. What we talk about will have to remain a secret between him and me. Inspired by the honor and courage of its reader, Sound turned into a nationwide movement with millions of members. Walker, it became the more it made the commons nervous. It thought the general strike that would paralyze the whole country and break down the government. The communists hacked the plan on able to wax millions, they decided to wax. So the readers they waited for a chance. And this came when Sarah called a meeting of the National Committee of God in December 1981. Now all of its readers would be in one place at the same time. At exact 3 minutes before midnight on December 7th, 12th, all private phones in Poland were cut off so that nobody could warn anybody else. Roadblocks were all set up all over the country, and the tanks rolled into the city streets to prevent riots. Almost all of the readers also were arrested in the hotel rooms in God. Make that the Pope wrote the letter to the communist readership, appealing to the constant. When people all over the world put candles in the windows as a gesture of support for Sogda, a candle appeared in the Pope windows too. Be not afraid. There was no sudden change. Eventually, spirit power trumped over brutal other forces. The communists had guns, tanks, and prisons, but they had lost their soul, so the French lost their willpower. When communists began, communists had promised to bring about a perfect society, but it was a lie. They brought only misery and poverty, and they rule only by fear. When people stopped fearing them, they discovered that many communists are no longer breathe their own lives. With the money left in their coffers, no plan for a better future, they lost the will to oppose the rules. They began to lose ground. By 1990, Works was rid of, so it was not just out of prison. He was chosen by the people to be president of Poland at long last. After more than 40 years, Polish communism was finally defeated. Their courage against evil was a sample to the citizens of many other communist countries. Pope John Paul scattered wisely, gently encouraged them all to stand up for the rights. His spiritual power combined with the economic and the military power of the Democrat countries behind the leadership of President Ronald Reagan and Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher to help bring an end to communism in many places where war or bloodshed. Pope John Paul did many other great things to advance human freedom and things around the world, but he never forgot simple people and the day-to-day concerns. People and expression when a street sweeper daughter in Rome asked him to perform her wedding ceremony. He obliged. Millions would remember him as playing a crucial role on the rough stakes, but many who knew him personally would also remember him as a man who brought right to all that he touched. Every husband, wife, John Paul the Scattered said his unique drum, and for sex drama, he believed the answer was in being God's faithful servant no matter the cost. Be not afraid. As a child, he was soccer and used to play goalkeeper. After he was ordained, he taught exit and eventually John Paul II was the first non-entire pope since Pope Urban in the 16th century. After hearing John Paul II speak, the French journalist for this is not a pope from Poland, this is a pope from Italy. He was the first pope to visit Rome Jewish synagogue to pay respect to the Jews of Rome in the place of worship. The Pope is in sorrow of the fact Italy is an independent state within the city of Rome, Italy. When John Paul II came to speak to a huge American crowd in New York City, the crowd began to chant John Paul II to Viva Fu.